Bats are out, and a star. I don't know if you guys can see it. There's the bat circling right there. And then, there's the bat again. Huh. I can see the star with my eye. With my eye, it's directly above the pole that they used to use for cable and those hand radios. Let's see if I do it too. Can you see it? There it is. There's the star. Starlight, star bright. For a star I seen tonight, make this wish come true. Wish I may, wish I might. However the rhyme goes. Wishing for both my son and I to have peace within our sleep and within our homes. I'm going to get a lot more views of stars tonight because I'm going to be able to catch them there. Oh, there's a plane. I'm leaving on the jet plane. I don't know when I'll be back again. Oh, babe, I hate to go. My bags are packed. I don't know, it says something like, and the taxi's blowing its horn. Da 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 da. That star looks so beautiful. And even though I'm really sad, probably in shock, although it was so hard. Seeing her in February was so great. But her words, because we've known each other since we were kids. The only time I was called Catherine or Catherine Elizabeth when I was a child was when my mother decided it's ass beating time for you, girl. Oh, there was no sparing the rod, or the hand, or the belt. When my girlfriend said, Kathy, when my best twin soulmate of my lifetime, my female friend, said, Kathy, I can't believe I'm going to be dead. I had held on all day not to cry in front of her, not just to make her feel worse than a cancer patient already feels when everybody they know wants them to make it, and there's no making it with certain diseases when you're a fourth stage. When you find out and you're already advanced fourth stage of certain things. She was diabetic. I said, I can't either. I don't know how to do this. And we were hugging each other. And she said, I don't either. And then we said some more things that we both had in our hearts and minds, and we knew that we were one, maybe the only other person we could say it to or say it to that would understand. And I do keep saying 50 years, but really it was 1974 in the fall, and we were locked by 1975. It was really like 51, almost 52 years. And yes, I had another best friend before her from my childhood, my birth, Doreen Weaver, and we were born to generational families that knew each other and lived in a small town, very small, a few thousand or less people. And I knew her my whole life. And we were best friends and my freshman year, but her sophomore year. And my parents had moved out of that town when I was 5 and going to first grade and moving to Gaylord, Michigan. And Doreen was a year ahead of me. She's a year and a couple months older than me, or 11 months and almost a year, but it put her a school year ahead of me. I knew her my whole life. But at 14, that same fall, she had fallen in love with a young man named Jack. We were all really into God, and I was a bit wild though. Anyway, I just saw the future, and I knew she and Jack were going to get married and have kids and grandkids, and I was ping-ponging all over the place, from a crazy, extremely spoiled, wealthy, intelligent, beautiful mother, and my father, a machinist, triple A by nature. That has to be perfect, and he was not hardly ever that way to make us children be, but he drove himself to be, and we lived in gorgeous, gorgeous Victorian homes, or gorgeous, huge homes, and then eventually one of the most just beautiful properties in the subdivision, with a pond in the front and a river on the side. There's that bat again. I've been blessed, and she's known me through all of it. We've went to each other's family reunions. We've been each other's confidants. We've been through our marriages and divorces, the losses of siblings, you name it, our fears, our worries. So I know I'm blessed. I'm blessed to have a childhood friend, Doreen Weaver, who is still married to Jack, and they have grandchildren. And she and I, in my first marriage, I caught up with her. I got married out of high school. You know, that's what they all pushed on us, and my parents were divorced, but still that pressure. But I did it, and she was the one who, at a softball game when I was emaciated, working 3 jobs, and he was running around, almost 4 or 5 years older than me, flunking out of school, flirting with women. He was trying to make me lose more weight and work harder, and she was like, no, Kathy. So I'm blessed to have a friend that I go back to the age 1 and 2, and because I had her from the age of living next door and knowing each other from the ages of 1 and 2, and then at the ages of me being 3 and her 4, we were allowed to walk across a little street on the edge of the back side of in the front of my home, and the front and back side of her parents' home, which also ran alongside the river. But you know, back then we followed. There wasn't so many distractions, and it was actually just one house and across the street over. And as long as I stayed in that path and stayed in the middle in front of the home, didn't go way to the back. But by 5, I was allowed, before we moved up north, to go to the river. Oh my God. But I was told I had to stay on the edge, don't go to the rocks, don't go down the side. And we followed those rules. Anyway, I'm blessed that I had Pamela for 52 years, and that I've had Doreen, who anytime we would see each other's family, like weird things, so we were also lived next to each other in married housing at Central Michigan University, 1 quad apart, and see each other coming and going, and knowing I was so happy for her that Jack was getting his education, and they moved out of state, still in the Midwest. Oh, another star just came out. I have friends all over the country and the world. I try to be a good friend and a fair friend and an honest friend, especially honest when I mess up and I don't get things right, or I drag things out, or my younger year would just be like maybe take on too much responsibility, and then just be like, oh, I'm sick, I'm going into the hospital. Everybody, you're on your own. And let people down by not taking care of myself better, so that I could stay that better friend who didn't bail on half a dozen projects and 3 jobs and school. That's burning the candle at both ends and in the middle, as I used to add. Pam and I were like that. We were high-level achievers. We were the only... Her sister passed when she was 7. And I didn't have a sister. So in theory, by the time we were best friends, but even by the time we were in 3rd grade together, she was back to being the only daughter. So she was the first child for 3 years, and she had her sister with her for 4 years, and her brother, and then later, 3 more brothers. Anyway, between us, there's a lot of pressure to be good, true, honest, decent women, Christian girls and women raised by good, honest, decent Christian women. And I suppose there's a few bad apple Christian women that have soured some, even their own children that they created against other women in that faith, in this faith. But when you step outside of a small box, a small circle, a few hundred or even a few thousand do not take away from the millions and millions of millions of good Christian girls, mothers, women, lovers of all of their children, regardless of their choices in... It used to be, oh my gosh, they married someone outside of the faith. What faith? The Christian faith, or the Catholic faith, or the Lutheran, or the Protestant, or the Episcopal, or the Nazarene. And then it was outside. Then it became more common to marry outside of gender. And my best friend and I were blessed to have been in a church when we were children, but also as teenagers and as adults, where we made the choices until she got married and chose the Catholic Church, which so by the time that there was same-gender marriage, she and I had already grown up in a church where a young man in town felt like a female, so he changed his body with the shots for not to have hair, and then to have breast, and then to have the lower level changed up. And then about 10 or 12 or 15 years into that, chose to revert and then go back to being male, and had things changed and stopped taking certain things so that the hair chemistry changed. And then, because we're in our 60s, he'd be heading towards 80s. Then he decided, I guess about 20 years ago, we would have been in our 40s, now we're in our 60s. I'm not sure if he's still alive, but I think so. And they owned the hobby shop, and the family knew, and they accepted all the changes, loved him, her, him, but in the end, chose to be, I guess maybe what we'd call both, although he didn't call himself a we or a us. He just was comfortable in, maybe he was more effeminate than some men, and although he wasn't wearing dresses or bras anymore, he had better hygiene and more grooming, and I'm gonna miss her so much, because we could talk and share about everything. And people are so limited in their loving abilities, not because they have to be, because somewhere they chose to be. And they tighten the grip where they're so open in some areas, and then there's a slip knot in others, and they just can't let it go. And they take it their lives with them. She and I always kept growing ourselves, and both being in the sciences and loving and believing God. Believe us, some of our greatest people that taught us and that we also believed in thought it was a quirk, oddity, that we did love and do love God and Jesus. Yeah. I did say to her about 4 months ago. And then, which is, even though I had these 2 channels from 2016 and 18, I never did anything with them. I started them based on other things that I thought I might be doing, which was starting to read my life works of short stories and long stories and novels and poems. But then when she got really sick, I realized I was going to need, even though I have another best friend, a male best friend, and I have lots of other friends, my male and female best friend, since I was 14 and then down 19, have been in the front, and we know so much and share so much that, of course, we were going to continue to grow and do that as we wanted, individually, and then knowing about each of their families and their lives and other friends and jobs. I'm blessed to have that. So I told her I was going to start to fill a void I never could, and that one day I was just talking to myself in the universe, and I heard, who am I going to talk to? Who's going to hear me? And I was accidentally realized I'm walking through a group of young people, and they're like teens to 30s maybe, but a group of really nice young people. And we started talking for a few minutes. I actually filmed it and shut off some of it. And I told it to them, and they immediately validated. And they're like, you have a YouTube channel, even if you didn't. We would, they were saying things like, you're cool and you're in tune, or they're young people words for hip, or I'm not saying the right ones, but. And 2 of the young people laying down on a blanket in part of this friend family circle group, comfortable, like what's your channel? And the other one had looked and like, we're gonna join it, and we hear you, you'll be heard, yes, and in that moment I immediately felt like I was leaving a bereavement, even though I'm going to be going through this stage of my life. I'm blessed to have her, to have, now I'll say to have had her. But those young people made me feel so instantly validated, instantly heard, instantly received. So now, like maybe that 91-year-old woman who asked me where I got that cart, and the store's closing, and I just decided she just doesn't do computers or smartphones. And I knew she was older, but when I went outside and she was still there, and I gave her the cart, she's 91 years old. And I listened to her, and I listened to the universe, and I listened to myself. And those are the things that I would say to Pam, like, oh, I think maybe I'll do this, or maybe I'll give so-and-so this, or, I did this, and it just felt good. And now she's gone. She's been gone 24 hours. And the last few weeks, like not hardly at all. And the last few months, barely. And it's hard to go from it's hard to go from 52, almost 52 years to 0, just in a matter of months and days. So now I'm going to talk to the universe that she's part of while I'm in this planet that I'm still on. And I thank all of you for joining me, listening to me, connecting with me, sharing, having these feelings, or if not, or these types of things, enjoying any of the things that I share or talk with you about, because it is about, I was emptying out and feeling a void, and maybe you can tell I am a communicator, a chit-chatter, a sharer of things, whatever I'm doing, rich or poor, happy, not often sad, but I'll be maybe showing something else even though I'm sad, just so it takes away my sadness but doesn't spread it, or my anger. I don't like to spread anger and volatile things, but I do love to spread love and peace and community and serenity. Thank you guys. You've been with me since the first star I saw tonight, and then a second, and now I don't see our bat collecting insects anymore, so it might be full. Sometimes there'll be 2 or 3, but now I see a couple dozen stars. So I'm going to shut this off, load it up. Let's see what we see on one. Not quite as many, but 2 is more blurred. But still, let me go back to 2 because it kind of looks like a lot of white dots. It is kind of pixelated. But there are lots of stars out. I'll come out and film again in a while. But I'm going to sit in thought, and one of those thoughts is thankful and grateful for anyone that watches this long video and hears me, or chooses to spend this time with me, whether it's tonight or at any time that this channel has this video. Thank you, and may peace be with us all.